Welcome to Through the Eyes of Survivors. This is a podcast where we amplify the voices of those who've been silenced, whether survivors or those lost to domestic violence. My name is Tara, and I'm here to take you on a journey. And we're going to listen and learn and heal in our podcast today. Now, each episode, we're going to sit down and listen to brave individuals who have navigated their journey through domestic violence and emerged stronger for it. Their stories are here to inspire you and help us understand through the complexities and what domestic violence really entails. So, this podcast isn't just about stories, it's a call to action by leading us down a path and a narrative where you lend your ears. We can contribute to a world where we can become more compassionate and more informed about this issue. I'm Tara Woodley, your host on this journey, and this is Through the Eyes of Survivors. Welcome to another episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. I'm your host, Tara Woodley, president of Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence, and we have another special episode. We've got somebody who did very well in one of our podcasts before. She's definitely one of the favorites out there who watch our podcast. So Miss Mia is back, and she is our social media engagement coordinator, and she's pursuing her schooling, her degree in social work. So Mia, just go ahead and say your full name, because like I said, I don't want to mess up your last name again.
My name is Mia Caicedo.
You're wonderful. And so we're so happy to have you back, Mia.
I'm so happy to be back.
Awesome. And so what we wanted to talk about today, especially with February being Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, we wanted to talk more in detail about relationships with young people, of what a toxic relationship looks like, and how they can notice the signs, and even like how that carries over into other relationships. So the progression of it. So I know, Mia, we discussed before in the last podcast about your relationship with your father and the toxicity of it. But we wanted to dive a little bit deeper into how did it affect you in the other relationships that you've had as a teenager and now a young adult. So you want to talk about that a little bit, do a little insight for us?
Yeah, it definitely affected me a lot. Like when I was first realizing how my dad was treating me was bad and it wasn't okay, I was always telling myself, I'm never gonna date anyone like my dad because I deserve better than that and I never want to be treated like that. But I ended up dating people that didn't treat me well because it was like I said before, I pushed people away because I thought I was these horrible things. I let people treat me badly because I thought that's what I deserved. And like because I love my dad and I still wanted to see him in the past, I would hold on to the good parts of our relationship so I would have something to hold on to when the times would get bad, so I would still go see him. And I would do that in my relationships too, trying to remind myself, but this person used to really like me. Like, yes, they're calling me all kinds of names and telling me horrible things about myself, but when we first started dating, they loved me. And I
Right.
justified all these behaviors from them because 3 months ago, they used to treat me good, so I tried to hold on to those things so hard, and so many survivors do that, and people always question, "Well, why didn't you leave if they started treating you bad?" When you're in a relationship like that, you try to remember the good things, because no one wants to give up on love. Even if the love isn't the best kind of love that they're experiencing, you don't wanna give up, you don't wanna let it go, because at one point in time this person loved you the most, even though it started going downhill pretty steadily. And I feel like a lot of survivors have previous trauma, and we always find ourselves in relationships that, it's not always as bad, but it's like barely a tiny step up. which really sucks because when we go through all those things, like people always say time heals all wounds, but it
Mm,
doesn't. Sometimes with time, things get harder, and the longer someone's gone, you miss them even more. But there's one thing that I think heals all wounds, and it's love. And it's not always love in a relationship. It's love from your family and your friends after someone broke you so horribly, reminding you how much you're loved, even if it's not in a relationship. Because I think everyone craves love. No one doesn't want to be loved. Like, it's just really hard to feel so much self-hatred. And I feel like when you hate yourself, you so desperately want to find someone who loves you and someone
mhm.
who will tell you all these beautiful things. And the worst part is when we're so broken and so damaged, people creep in and they know that you want to be told all these things. And so they'll
Right.
tell you all those things. And then they'll end up being horrible too. Like when things started getting bad with my dad, I started dating I started dating an older guy when I was 17 years old and he was 23. And in my mind I was like, "Oh, he thinks I'm mature. Wow." And it wasn't
Right.
that. He knew that he could stick his little hooks into me and get me like to fall in love. And and I was just so mesmerized, and I knew he wasn't the best person for me. There were other
Right.
guys in my life that are still in my life that were so amazing to me, that have never made me feel an ounce of uncomfortableness, but instead I settled for this guy who wasn't a good guy, because that's what I thought I deserved, and it was horrible, and I now I look back that I'm older and I'm like, I should have said something because it
Right.
wasn't okay. This guy wasn't with me because I was mature. He was with me so he could try to rob me. And thankfully that didn't happen.
Right.
There's not a day that I'm not thankful that I eventually left. And I feel bad for my mom because she knew. And
Mhm.
she was like, she was so angry. But in my I was just so like hard-headed. I'm still pretty hard-headed, but back then,
Uh-huh.
no one could tell me a single thing until I was just like, okay, I'm done. And
Right.
it took a lot for me to be done. Like, I think he had started like talking to other girls for me to be done with it. I was just like I don't know how I started seeing myself as worth more, but I'm so glad that I did. And it
Right.
took after that, it took a lot of healing because before that, I had a boyfriend that I'd broken up with, and he had called me fat. And so my self-image was horrible. And so I was just, and I remember after that, I started dating this guy, and the first thing he told me was, "You're so pretty." And that's all I wanted to hear because I just felt so horrible about myself. And
Mhm.
then he would call me stupid, and he would call me dumb, and call me ugly, joking, but
Right.
it hurt because,
Mhm.
like, the first thing he said to me was, "Oh, you're so pretty," and then to call me stupid and ugly and dumb, I was like, "How did this happen?" And eventually I was like, "Okay, bye."
So, Mia, tell me, like, what age were you when, like, what age are we talking about where the boyfriend called you fat and then this other relationship happened?
I think I was, I was 16 when my ex-boyfriend called me fat. Well, he did okay, he is not like I don't wanna paint him to be this horrible guy because
Right.
we did love each other, and I
Mhm.
was already so everyone makes mistakes, and I think when you're damaged, like, I was so broken because I never healed from what happened to my with my dad, and so it's like I was looking for this for this reason to break us up because I didn't think that I deserved the love that he gave me because
Right.
he was an amazing boyfriend. He was so kind to me, but
Mhm.
this one little word where it just picked a tiny bit of my insecurity, I blew it out of proportions, and
Right.
I didn't deserve for that word to be said to me, but we were young, and I know that his intention now looking at it, I know his intentions weren't bad, but I was just self-sabotaging. I was looking for a reason to let him go because things with my dad had gotten real bad. And after I broke up with him, in my mind, I was like, I miss him. I don't want to do this. But I went to my dad and talked to him about it. And he was like, well, you are. So it
Oh,
drove that barrier for
it
me
drove it in.
in mind.
Yes. I absolutely. And I definitely get what you're saying because even, I'm older. It's been a while since I was a teenager, but I had the same kind of daddy issues. And I, I would call it like I decided to pick things apart with certain relationships to where I could abandon them. I could walk away and abandon them and leave them before they abandoned me. That's kind
Yes.
of the way I was doing through my teen years of like, okay, you're going to call me this and bye before you leave me because now you have established a perimeter of where I personally am not up to snuff, so you're going to abandon me eventually. So I'll just do that to you first,
Yeah.
kind of thinking in my head. And now I'm older, I'm like, oh, that was so stupid. Why did I do that? And it's because of the issues I had with my father
Yeah.
and father figures in my life that weren't great. So,
It sucks because we I feel like survivors self-sabotage so much because after it, we think so lowly of ourselves. So we either settle for a bad guy or we push the good ones away. Because it's how do you go from the extreme of feeling so horrible about yourself, being told horrible things, being beaten, to going to someone who treats you like you deserve everything? It's so
right,
hard. Like my mom talked about how when she met my stepdad, who is the best thing in our lives, she talked about how she didn't like they had some issues, but they were usually because of my mom because she didn't think she deserved him. She knew that he was good for her, but she didn't think that it was going to work out because she thought she had 3 kids. She just came from an abusive relationship. She didn't think that he would stay. And
mhm,
he turned out to be the best thing in our lives. Every single day, he redeems things that my dad did. And
right,
he pushed through so many walls that he didn't need to. But he loves us so much that he breaks down those barriers and walls every single day. Because my mom and I get triggered. It's usually me because I
yeah.
just get angry, but he's the kindest person ever, even when I'm rude.
That's such a blessing.
It
Because it
is.
also gives you a good example of what, men should be
Mhm.
and how relationships should be.
It's it
So, yeah.
yeah, it really shows you that I feel like people think that they deserve less because, "Oh, I went through this horrible pain, so obviously I'm not gonna get these good things." But your pain has so much purpose, and
Mhm.
I feel like at least the volunteers within our organization, now they see it, like, we've totally turned our pain around into helping others, into doing other things to so we can save people that are going through what we went through. And that's the best thing that I love that because there's so many amazing women and men on our team that
Mhm.
every single day show up for others. And it's like one of the like especially me, I started volunteering when I was 19 to see these amazing, powerful women that went through, especially you, Tara. You went through such horrible things. And so to see
Um,
you work through it and help so many people every single day, I was like, when you first started training me, I was like, she's so great.
oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just me. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. My name is Tara Woodley, and I am the president of Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence, an organization that gives survivors and their families, and the families that have lost loved ones to domestic violence, access to a community that understands the journey that they're facing. We hope this episode impacts you, and hopefully you want to learn more about the topic. If it is helping you in some way, let us know in the comments below. We love your feedback. Also, make sure to click the subscribe button below and the bell right next to it so that you can get notified the next time an episode premieres. We hope you will see us in the next episode, and thank you. I feel like there's so many people out there that just they need the help. They need the, you know, experience of a mentor in their lives. And if I can be that to some people, then um, that's the goal. I don't ever want to see anybody get where I was, where I felt stuck in this marriage and couldn't get out. And then I got out of the marriage and then experience it to watch your children go through it. So, you know, the history of toxic relationships going through your family is just, it's a sobering thought. And you just, when you experience some of what you experience now, you just, like you said, you want to help people. And so it's just a goal here with the organization. That's what we're about. Um, so let's go back. I'm going to ask you more questions about that relationship, the older man. So, about how much older than you was he?
He was 6 years older than me. I was 17. I wasn't even I wasn't even of age, and I was talking to a 23-year-old. And
Right?
it wasn't like I was 17 about to turn 18. I had just turned 17 when he started hitting on me. And it
Uh-huh.
was so like I wish someone had like I wasn't in the position to stand up for myself, but I wish like someone else had seen it and
Uh-huh.
reported it. Like there's people who saw it and no one said anything, especially because the manager was his best friend. There was no way that I was ever
Right.
gonna.
So you were met through work then,
It
is
was
how you
through
met?
work. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And like there were multiple managers, but the other one knew too. Like everyone knew. And now I quit the job. After, when I went on a vacation with my best friend, and I was like, I don't want to go back, and I quit. And I didn't think that quitting my job was gonna free me from that, but I'm so glad it did because it was never not gonna be my fault. Like no matter like there were too many people in power's positions that could have twisted it to make it my fault. And
Uh-huh.
people always make it the woman's fault. They always, "Well, what did you wear? What did you say? Did you say yes? Or did you say no? And if you did say no, did it seem like you were joking?" Like, it would never have worked out for me, for
Uh-huh.
me to get any justice, which sucks because there's so much abuse that goes on in workplaces too with minors and
Uh-huh.
older men. And it's so horrible, especially because we grow up and like, moms will tell us, "He's mean to you because he likes you." That's
Oh no.
horrible to tell someone. When I
Yeah.
have I'm so set on when I have kids, like, not even hitting them because my dad hit me, and he didn't, like, spank me, he, like, pushed me into walls. He, like,
Mhm.
threatened me that saying that he was gonna beat my ass and all these kinds of things. And so I was so set that I'm not going to hit my kids because I don't ever want to teach them that someone who loves you hurts you because it's love doesn't hurt. And people always say love does hurt. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Changing to be better for the person that you love, that can hurt. It's hard to change. But the
Mhm.
person who loves you is not going to hurt you. Why
Mhm.
would they? Like, love is not everyone's religious, I am, but love is patient, love is kind.
Mhm.
So and everyone deserves someone to be kind to them, to love them, to be patient with their flaws, rather
Mhm.
than pointing out every single horrible thing about you, saying you need to work on this, you need to work on this. Like, sometimes you do need to work on stuff to be the best version of you for the person that you love, but you shouldn't be with someone who continuously drags you down, makes you feel horrible. There's
Yeah.
just like, I wish that I knew better when I was younger
Mhm.
because I didn't think that I was mirroring these relationships with my dad, but I was. And it sucks
Mhm.
because I thought I was getting so far away from it that my relationships would never cause me harm, and they did. And I had a history of self-harm. I self-harmed for 8 years, and, like, the relationships when they started going south, it would get worse for me. And now that I'm older and I'm working through my trauma all the time, I am not dating anyone because I need to work on myself because I know I need to be the best version of myself so I can be with someone who redeems everything that I've ever been through. Because I've seen people in relationships after being in domestic violence relationships and their new husbands redeem every single quality. And
Mm.
if another survivor got that, why wouldn't I? Like, I
Right.
don't believe that anything ever happens in vain because I strongly believe that through our pain, our purpose shows. And I think this is my purpose to talk about these experiences, to talk about how I struggled with self harm, to talk about how I was 11 years old and I was in a psych ward for trying to kill myself. Because when we're in those dark places, we so badly need to see someone who's on the other side. And I didn't have anyone my age that was on the other side. And so I'm so glad that now I can show that perspective to people in my life that does get better. Like, it's not
Mhm.
gonna stay so horrible for the rest of your life.
Right. Now, I know when we had talked earlier, a couple weeks ago before we were talking about young people and toxicity. And so, like, you were talking about, boy, I just want to tell the whole world, all these young people, I see them doing X, Y, and Z. And I got to thinking about, today versus what we did when I was younger. So, you know, we had back then. Today, you have technology, but back then you break up from relationships and people would, oh, let's drive by his house, let's toilet paper his house, let's do, we'll call him a million times. My friends will call him a million times, or even when you're dating, they're calling a million times to see if you're at that friend's house, and you're like, where are you going, what you're doing, and they're following you. But now everything is kind of done through social media and these apps. And so you were saying stuff before about you just want to tell these young people, stop. you know? So let's discuss some of what is happening out there for those who are watching and listening. Uh, uh, and even like maybe enlighten some young people's eyes as to what behaviors really are like. They borderline, or they're red flags, they lead into this abuse. What is it that you see out there today?
Toxic relationships are so romanticized with my generation. Like, I see people posting, "We're so toxic," and I'm like, "That's not cute." Like, it's not toxic, it's not cute to break up a million times because your boyfriend cheated on you and to go back to him. Like,
Mhm,
everyone deserves someone who's gonna be 100% faithful to you, someone who will choose you every single time, not someone who chooses you, but's looking the other way, seeing if someone's trying to choose them. Like,
mhm.
you don't deserve that. You don't de like, n and people will call each other the B word, like, it's so normal, like,
Right.
and I hate that. Like, if someone has called me that, blocked. Like, get out of my phone. It's
Yep.
not cute for you to treat me badly. And when I was younger, I used to think like, when I was, like, 15, I was like, um movies set me up for failure because love isn't like the way it's shown in movies, but love should be the way it's shown in movies. Everyone deserves these big romantic things, someone to come outside of their house playing music for them. Like, we deserve that. We don't deserve the everyday, just, you want to come over? How are you doing? Like, that's not cute.
Let's chill.
Yeah.
Let's chill, and they don't even take you for dinner.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like people started settling for so low. Like, it's like everyone's value, like, to themselves, I feel like especially girls I know, we don't think so highly of ourselves anymore, and I wanna know when that turn like, because how did that happen?
Right.
I feel like, I'm not trying to blame the generation of parents right now,
Hmm.
but there's a lot of, like, broken families and broken homes, and it sucks. It
Hmm.
sucks to have and people talk so like, when divorced parents, 95% of the time, they talk so horribly about each other, and you're raising your kid to think horribly about someone who makes up half of them. Like, so how
Hmm.
wouldn't their value be diminished when you're telling your kid, "Your dad is this, your mom is that." They're my parent, they're me, so how are you
Right.
telling me that? Like, it's so horrible. And then people romanticize like, see domestic violence like it's normal, and it's not normal. No one deserves to get someone's hands put on them. And there's like, there's so much that no one deserves, and people think's normal, and it's not normal, and it's not okay.
Hmm.
And it's heartbreaking to see, because I've had so many friends that were in relationships that were horrible, and they stayed, and they stayed, and they stayed. And I've always been the friend who is like, "Your boyfriend's treating you bad, get a new one." Because
Right.
we might think that this is the person who's gonna treat me best, there's no one better than them, but you'll know when you're with the best possible person, because there won't be a shed of doubt in your mind. I feel like this is just me, but in my mind, when I'm with the person I'm gonna be with the rest of my life, I'm gonna know. And it's like because I'm Christian, I believe that when you're gifted with things from God, that there's not a ounce of doubt. And so I'm waiting for that, and I'm not going to waste my time running after people who don't treat me the way I deserve to be treated. And
Absolutely.
it breaks my heart that people settle for less because they think their pain diminishes their value, and it doesn't. Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter what you've been through. You don't deserve to be treated badly. You deserve everything that redeems what you've been through. And so, I hope people stop settling for things that they don't deserve.
Right. No, I agree with you because when you settle, then it is absolutely, it's not just a diminishment that you feel of your value, but it's a diminishment of the world out there in general, of the things you can do, who you can be, the possibilities, the adventures you can have, and why we allow ourselves to be so locked into this tiny little bubble and think that's the whole reality. Because there's such a big, bright, beautiful world out there. And there's somebody out there that God intended for you who is going to be the person that does all that with you. They grow that with you, they expand that bubble and that universe for you to make it endless. Um, and I want people to understand that it should be glorious, eh, what you experience, actually, with all your connections with all the people within your realm, not just your relationships, but especially your relationships.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I believe that people need to start raising their kids better. Like, we need to start instead of like getting so angry at your kids, sometimes you need to tell them, I feel like I was raised like my dad telling me all these horrible things about myself. So when someone told me something horrible, I believed it. Versus my mom always told me everything good about myself. But because I had already had this doubt, I believed the doubt. So I think when I have kids, I'm gonna raise them to know that they're loved and they're smart. So when someone comes along and they tell them something horrible about themselves, they won't believe it because they've never heard that before. So this person must be lying. Like, everyone deserves a firm foundation of knowing that they're loved and they're strong and they're beautiful and they're smart and they're all these things. So when someone comes along saying you're dumb, you could be like, my mom said something else." And
Mhm.
I think people would like say you're a loser for saying that, but it's you don't want to raise your kids to have any doubt in themselves. Like we need to raise our kids strong
Mhm.
because we everyone deserves so much love. And the world would be so much happier if everyone knew what love felt like.
Right.
How many people never grew up knowing love? And that's where all the issues stem from, is not feeling loved, feeling unworthy of love, feeling like love is something that you'll never receive. Because I think love will always find you, and everyone deserves to find it. And sometimes when you stop searching and stop desperately looking for love in other places, you'll find it where you are. Because,
Right.
like, for so long, I was dating and dating and dating and waiting to find love. And I stopped dating, and I realized how loved I was from my family and my friends. And I was so hell-bent on finding love from a relationship, thinking that there was no love in my life. And now, because there's so much love in my home, the love that I find outside of my home has to be like up here to pass
Mhm.
to even compete. Not that
Well, and you want to find somebody who expands that realm of your love, who doesn't isolate you from the love you already experienced. When you have these friends and you have family and you know your worth and you know that these relationships are loving and healthy, the person you bring in should be an extension of that. They shouldn't want to pull you out of that and isolate you from that type of love, and you and us too be an expansion of the love that they have with their families and stuff. So if people all the way around are just damaged, 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 and don't know how to deal with that, I think especially amongst young people today, all they have seen is the toxicity, and then they get into a relationship, and the toxicity is normal, and normalized. And then, like you said, in culture, the culture today is romanticizing it big time. You can see it in different films and different music. We were talking about that before, and now I don't know exactly the word I'm looking for, but sometimes it feels like as you scroll through social media on TikTok and different things that it's just another thing to try to get followers or to get attention. Attention, that's the word I'm looking for. Like they're using their toxic relationships to get attention in a way by what they're doing. But isn't that the wrong kind of attention? I mean, if you're romanticizing that, I wonder, wouldn't it be better to have promote the right kind of attention in these relationships instead of focusing on glamorizing how toxic we can really be?
yeah, and I feel like there's so many relationships on YouTube that base their relationships off of pranking each other. Like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
there's that uh pranking my girlfriend that I cheated on her and got someone pregnant. Like why would you base your relationship why would you put little seeds of doubt in your relationship? Like what if this next time he's not joking? What if
Uh-huh.
like it's horrible? Like I like to think of a relationship as a garden because we plant these little seeds of love and they grow and they grow and they grow.
Right.
And they should be able to grow. You should be able to grow with the person that you love. You shouldn't be with someone who doesn't want you to grow, who wants you to stay this tiny little plant that doesn't have any flowers. Like you deserve to be this huge, beautiful flower. Like we deserve people that make help us pursue our dreams, not I'm not ready for your dreams and I'm going to keep you here with me. Like
Hmm.
and it's like I have so many dreams of love because now I see how beautiful love can be and I know that I want it and I deserve it and it's somewhere. I haven't found it yet. I'm waiting for it to find me because I can't take control anymore. But I know now that if other people deserve it, why wouldn't I? Like, I
Mhm.
don't think anyone deserves something more than the other. And I know that because I went through all these horrible things, that it's out there for me because it's gonna redeem everything I've been through.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. We wanted to pause for a moment and let you know that Through the Eyes of Survivors shop is now open. This is a great way for you to not only help survivors of domestic violence, but let everyone else know that you will not be silent on this very important issue. From t shirts to bags to coffee mugs, we have so much to choose from. To grab swag, head to store.breakthesilencedv.org. That's store.breakthesilencedv.org. I can't say enough how much we appreciate you and that the organization is blessed by your generosity. We hope you enjoy the rest of this episode and you continue to subscribe to our podcast. Thank you. So, just a few more things. I got lots of questions always in my end. But do you feel like that relationship with the older guy, do you feel like he was grooming you into this life of abuse? Not really, like, I wouldn't say grooming you, but maybe setting you up. I know sometimes the older men, they are grooming younger women into what they're wanting and to accept things that they shouldn't be accepting. But do you feel like that was kind of the way that relationship was heading?
It totally was because, like, I knew him when I was 16, but he didn't start, and we were just like friends,
Mhm.
and I didn't know that there were ulterior motives. But once I turned 17, all the ulterior motives showed up.
Mhm.
And like I know that not every age gap relationship is like that, but
Right.
I but really, what does a 17-year-old have in common with a 23-year-old? Like,
Right.
even now, I'm 20 years old, and, when I think of even someone like 18, I'm like, "That's a baby, that's a child,"
Mhm. Or
versus I
even right now, you're 20. I mean, I'm sure you experience older men like 35, 36, even, who may look at you and talk to you. And I know I did when I was younger, and I had that experience a couple times, and I was like, I have nothing in common with you. Why are you talking to me?
yeah, it's so weird. It's
Uh-huh.
it's so it's nasty. It is, it's nasty. Like, why is this older guy looking at this little girl like, "Ooh, I can't wait to make her into everything I want." That's disgusting. And I started realizing if this older guy is trying to talk to me when I'm young, there's a reason no one his age wants him. Like, he's not single for no reason. He's
Well, just say it like it is, Mia.
yeah, it's so like I'm I'm through with I've never been someone who sugarcoats anything because I feel like why make the truth sometimes it sucks.
Right.
Why try to make it sweet and, like, hinder the message? The truth is, you don't need an older guy. Like, it's,
Yeah.
no, thank you. And
But that's happening a lot. I think it's happening more even so now than, or maybe I was a little naive back then, but it seems to be, as I'm getting older, watching that more and more of that seems to be happening, like it's the norm.
yeah, I think it's because like, there's so many divorced relationships that are bad. And
Right.
I craved love from my dad, who is older than me, so I was started craving love from older guys because I wanted the validation.
Mhm.
And I didn't see it till recently, and I was like, "Ew." Like, why is my brain like that, craving this love from someone older, but it's because my dad didn't love me,
Mhm.
at least not in a way that I could accept. And I think a lot of people are like that. like, even though we crave these huge, like, things of love, we settle for the love that we think we deserve.
Mhm.
But there's definitely patterns in our trauma and in our relationships. Like,
Right.
it's like they cross. Like, they don't stay parallel and just stay moving towards, like, away from each other. They overlap, and it's messy, and it causes even more trauma that you're gonna have to work through, which is fine because eventually people learn from it, but it's just putting yourself through unnecessary pain that you don't deserve.
Mhm.
And I went through a lot when I was super young, and I didn't need to go through even more pain, but I put myself through it because I thought I deserved it, and I'm so glad that I know that I didn't. And I
Mhm.
and now I have younger cousins, and it's one younger cousin that's specifically a lot like me, and so when she has a hard time, I try to be to her what I needed when I was her age. Because it's
Right.
so hard struggling when you're so young and not being able to see it someone who went through what you went through.
Mhm.
Like we just need to like everyone just needs to know that our trauma and our pain ends. It's not endless. It doesn't keep going forever and ever.
Mhm.
Pain hurts and grief comes in stages, but it's not always so horrible.
Mhm.
And that one day you get out of it and you don't even realize that you're out until you look back and you realize, wow, I've come so far. And
Right.
sometimes it feels like we're right there, especially when you have like PTSD, you feel like when you get triggered, you feel like you're right back in it. But it's not. Like we're never where we were. Every single day is a new day where we get to go forward and learn new things and make mistakes.
Mhm.
And there's always opportunities to get out where you from where you are.
Mhm.
And thankfully now with social media, there's so many different resources that can help you. Like there's the
Absolutely.
domestic violence hotline. We have our support line that
Mhm.
is, and it's run by survivors. Like there's so many
Absolutely.
people that that have been like, especially with our organization, there's people who've been exactly where you are,
Mhm.
know what you're going through versus like I didn't want to always go to a therapist because she doesn't know what I've been through. But in
Right.
Break the Silence, we know exactly what you've been through. Like we've
Mhm.
been there and we're on the other side, so we can help you. And there's other resources as well. But I'm so
Right.
glad that there are resources because so many people just need to see that there's an other side.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that now that like social media is so big that it's in your face that there's another side. But
Mhm.
it's definitely a double-edged sword because sometimes you only see the bad, but there's a good if you start looking for it.
Mhm. Well, and I think sometimes too, the young people too can look for some of the red flags. I think you can look for, like my daughter Ashley, definitely. Of course, she had daddy issues because of the abuse that we endured within the family with her father. And when she did decide to have a big girl relationship, she got with, she was 20 years old with a 29-year-old. And what happened in there, he definitely was setting her up. But when you have one of the red flags you have is when family and friends around you are going, hey, this relationship is not about love or whatever. He is enticing you, he is surrounding you, he's grooming you, he's setting you up to be someone you're not and to take that from you. Really listen to that, because a lot of times your friends will be like, I know her friends did that, and family too went, this guy has got an agenda,
Mm.
and it's not about you, and it's all about him. And when you look at the relationship and you balance it. And then I will never forget what my mom said about the relationship. She looked at my daughter and said, uh, "You've picked your dad, but on steroids," meaning he was like 100 times worse than even what her father was. And so that's the other thing. I think you can judge off of signs. If family and friends are telling you you've picked someone like the person who abused you, like the father figure who did all these things, then you got to take notice that the issue is stemming from all the trauma that you suffered, and that this is not what you're needing or wanting or what God has intended for you. He doesn't intend for somebody else who's just like the person who hurt you to come and fix you. That's not how it works. You don't fix a broken glass with another piece of a different broken glass. You don't. That's not how you fix it. So uh, I would love for young people to just realize that. I wish somebody would told me that even when I was younger, that you're not going to be able to fix what was broken with something else that is just like what broke you.
Yeah. You're like so thankfully, um after my dad hit me, it was at my old house and we ended up moving. And us moving was so good for me because you don't heal in the situation that broke you. Like you need to leave. And it's okay to leave. Like you don't always have to stay where you are because like, no one wants to stay there. No one wants to stay and be reminded of their pain every single day. But we always end up like I feel like right after a domestic violence relationship, a lot of people end up in similar situations because that's what you're used to. And I would say like to younger people, like watch out for someone who's love bombing you.
Mhm.
'Cause they give you so much love that's like oh, borderline overwhelming, and then they slowly start taking it away, and you start seeing all these red flags. Don't when a red flag pops up, don't ignore it.
Right.
Showing you a little like the red flag is a warning. It's gonna get worse. So when you see that red flag, leave. And I know when I was younger, I thought my parents telling me he's not good for you was they just don't want me to be happy. But it's
Mhm.
not that. They have your best usually they have your best interest at heart. And if there's multiple people telling you, maybe think that, hey, maybe if it's from a bunch of people, maybe they're right. Like
Mhm.
sometimes people when you're on the outside looking in, sometimes you don't see everything, but when you're from the outside looking in and you see a bunch of crap, maybe it's just crap.
Mhm.
Like maybe like I just there's just so much that's horrible that we just ignore. Like
Mhm.
cheating,
Yes.
mean words,
Mhm.
not making time like if your loved one doesn't make time for you, like why don't be with that person? I'm sorry. Like someone who
Mhm.
loves you will always find a way to be with you. There's no
Mhm.
bounds to love. So, I'm trying to think of, like, more red flags.
Oh, there's so many. I know you can like look them up online, and if you follow our Facebook and stuff, we're definitely this whole month focusing on that, the red flags and toxic relationships and stuff. But I mean, the love bombing, and then what the tearing up to tearing you down to build you back up. That constant, that kind of roller coaster, that cycle, it is another one. Constant, constant on either end from men or women. The constant monitoring you.
Like,
Just
going
like
through your social media, not trusting you,
right.
especially when there's been no seeds of doubt, like, a big foundation of a relationship is trust, and if you can't trust the person that you're with, you shouldn't be with that person.
Mhm.
And I think one thing is that's really important in a relationship is consent, and a
Right.
lot of people that skews like, a lot of people don't even think of that.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people in their mind, if you're in a relationship, consent's implied. It's not implied.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not.
someone to be asking for consent for everything. "Can I kiss you?" "Okay." Like, you
Mhm.
can say no. Just because 'cause you're with someone doesn't mean you can't say no. Like, you can say no if
Well,
you ever.
absolutely, because 'cause I'm a married woman, and if I say no, you best bet I meant no. And just
Yeah!
because I'm married, so it applies in dating relationships as well. I mean, just because you're dating or seeing that person, that is not implied consent at
It
any time.
I feel like, you also, like, you have to be with someone who understands you, like, understands your triggers and knows how to navigate them. And when you have a lot of triggers, there's points where they might accidentally trigger you, but you can tell when someone's being sincere or being not being sincere. But a lot of the time, thankfully, people do have pure intentions, but you need to like, everyone needs to watch out for people who don't, because it's very obvious when they don't sometimes. Like, sometimes they hide it so well that you don't even notice it, but when you really start looking into things, you see every single red flag.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Well, in wrapping up, is there anything else you'd just like to say to young people out there who are trying to seek like a good relationship?
I feel like you really have to love like, this is so cliche, but you really do have to love yourself before you love someone else. Because I think, like, you don't deserve to not be loved. You deserve every ounce of love that's there to have. And you deserve to go on beautiful dates. You deserve little notes to remind you of how loved you are. You deserve all the good things that they have that are there to offer in life. So don't settle for less than you deserve.
Mhm.
And if you don't find, like, you don't have to just look for love in relationships. You can look for love in your family and your friends. And there's always love. Love is always gonna be there, so you don't have to go searching for it, it's right there.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mia, so much for being here with us again. I love having you on. I love doing the podcasts with you. So absolutely. Well, that concludes our Through the Eyes of Survivors podcast on this episode. Please be sure to check out our Facebook pages, Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. You can look on our website, our support line, if you need some help, someone to talk to, a listening ear. Contact that. The information will be down below here. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us today in this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. To continue supporting survivors and joining us in the fight against domestic violence, visit our website at www.breakthesilencegv.org. You can make a donation, look at some of our great programs, and together we can truly make a difference. If we can break our silence, so can you. So please donate and help share. Thank you.